Hello, writers and readers. I'm freelance fiction editor Miranda Darrow, here with my weekly video about writing, editing, and the writing life. This month, we're talking about epistolary novels, and this week's video is my list of recent book recommendations written in the epistolary form. Of course, I recommend Jane Austen's Lady Susan and the more recent BBC movie version of it called Love and Friendship. But if you want something a bit more recent for your to-be-read list, I've got you covered. First up is The Appeal by Janice Hallett. Epistolary novels can be a number of different genres, and this first example is a mystery told in letters and other papers. In this story, the Fairway Players is a local theater group who are in the midst of rehearsals when the play's director, Martin Hayward, and his wife Helen, the play's star, get bad news. Their young granddaughter has been diagnosed with a rare form of cancer, and they say there's a very pricey treatment that's their best hope. Their castmates rally to raise a bunch of money to give this young granddaughter a chance at survival. But not everybody is convinced of the experimental treatment's efficacy or of the good intentions of the people involved. As the tension grows within the community, things come to a shocking head at the explosive dress rehearsal. And the next day, a dead body is found, and soon an arrest is made. In the run-up to the trial, two young lawyers are sifting through a whole bunch of material, emails, messages, letters, and suspecting that the killer may be hiding in plain sight. The evidence is all right there, waiting between the lines, and they just need to uncover it. Note, I listened to this book on audiobook, and I will say, that's not exactly the best medium for most epistolary novels, as you miss something when you don't see the visual cues that this is a letter or this is an email and where it started and where it ended. I love audiobooks, but not for some of these. Next up, Where'd You Go, Bernadette by Maria Semple. This is a funny story and it's touching, and it follows 15-year-old Bee who is trying to find her mother, Bernadette. Bee's overindulgent parents promised her a gift of her choosing if she got perfect grades, and Bee wants to travel to Antarctica. That's all great for Bee, but it's not great for her mom, Bernadette, who has grown agoraphobic and rarely leaves the house lately. Bernadette has never really fit in since her family moved to Seattle, enrolling Bee at a preppy high school that reminded me of Julia Louis-Dreyfus's characters in The New Adventures of Old Christine, when Christine could never get the drop-off lane instructions right and was constantly at odds with the other moms. That's Bernadette. And this starts with this report card where the scale, it's hilarious. You can see her whole report card, but then the scale is like, the key is S, surpasses excellence, A, achieves excellence, or W, working towards excellence. I'm like, okay, I know all about this school just from that report card that was the first chapter. B pieces together a series of emails, reports, and other written materials to figure out where her mom went, and more importantly, why. All right, third up is Attachments by Rainbow Rowell. This one came out in 2011, so it's a little old, and it was recent historical at the time because it was set in the 1990s when computers in the workplace were relatively new and companies did not know how to react. So some companies decided to read everything. It's also funny because the same debates are going on right now about AI in the workplace and remote work, and employers engaging all kinds of means to spy on their employees and making sure they're talking about the right things. And is this a personal conversation? The Attachments is told through interoffice emails and the IT logs. It tells the story of a lonely IT guy who falls for a woman after reading through her witty personal emails, the ones that he's supposed to be monitoring. What could ever go wrong with that? Next up is my favorite on the list, and nobody's heard of it. It's called We Are Tornadoes by Michael Kuhn and Susan Mullen. It was released in 2016, so only 9 years ago, but it's set in 1982, and it's a series of letters. Remember, 1982, there was no internet, there was no emails, there were no cell phones, there wasn't text messages, but it's a series of actual letters sent between two best friends when one of them heads off to college and the other one stays in their hometown and starts working for his father's business, family business, which is a grocery store. This one has so much heart and tackles what I think is one of the biggest challenges in epistolary novels, which is how to convey an interactive scene when you're limited to relaying the story's events written after the fact. Because we know that the author survived, they're writing it, and the main characters grow up and they grow apart during this year where they're writing letters back and forth. Scott makes an ill-fated trip to visit Kath at school and find out that she's changed a lot in her time there, but he's still mired in their hometown. The title is based on their high school mascot, the Tornadoes, and that they are both still tornadoes despite their divergent paths. Can they stay friends despite their different paths their lives are taking, especially in a pre-internet and cell phone world where expensive long distance was not something most people could do on a regular basis? All right, so that was We Are Still Tornadoes. Check it out. The Martian by Andy Weir. To me, it's always fun to see how an epistolary novel, this one told through mission logs, scientific notes, and recorded messages, can be turned into a live-action movie. You're like, a movie? It would be somebody sitting here reading a bunch of stuff. But no, they did. This was a hugely successful movie starring Matt Damon. And not only did they bring it to life, but Matt Damon was actually acting almost completely alone, which is another challenge in filmmaking. I don't talk about filmmaking here. The main character, Mark Watley, is stranded on Mars after his mission was aborted and his colleagues left him behind thinking he was dead. But surprise, Mark Watley is alive, and he needs to figure out how to survive and how to communicate with NASA back on Earth so that they could try and send a rescue mission, because otherwise he'll be the first human to die on Mars. The novel features a log-like narrative with technical notes and diagrams and problem-solving lists woven into the text and used to dramatize the science and the discovery. The author liked that Stranded Alone in Space theme so much that he did more of the same, Andy Weir did, with his more recent Project Hail Mary, but that was a little bit less epistolary, and it also did introduce another character, lovable alien Rocky, not too far into it. Next up, Daisy Jones and the Six by one of my favorite authors, Taylor Jenkins Reid. This too got made into a miniseries for a streaming service, and it was a great show. The novel was told as a series of interview transcripts, and it reminded me of the old VH1 show Behind the Music. It's an oral history of a 1970s rock band's rise and breakup, exploring fame, addiction, and creative tension. Some readers, old ones like me, say that it reads like it was inspired by Fleetwood Mac, and I don't disagree. I recently saw a meme online that says, sure, Taylor Swift writes diss songs about her exes, but Stevie Nicks from Fleetwood Mac not only wrote songs about her ex, she had him perform them and stand right next to her because he was the guitarist. That's next level. Unlike most epistolary novels, this one works great as an audiobook. So if you're going to read Daisy Jones and the Six, get the audiobook because it's a full cast production and it sounds very much like a podcast version of Behind the Music, including original song lyrics. I listened to this one while I was driving from Minnesota to Milwaukee for a writing conference, and I could not stop telling people about this amazing audiobook while I was at the writing conference. Next up, The Lover's Dictionary by David Levithan. Unlike the other books on my book list, I have not read this one yet, but I came across the description while I was researching epistolary novels for this month's genre feature, and I added it to my to-be-read list because of the really unique structure. I really enjoy the author's everyday book and its sequels, so I will get to it. I'm on the wait list. It's told through dictionary entries rather than traditional chapters. It's fragmented but heartfelt account of a romantic relationship's highs and lows. Next up is the Illuminae series by Amie Kaufman and Kristoff. It is told through a dossier of hacked documents, including emails, maps, files, IMs, medical reports, interviews, and more. It's the year 2575, and two rival megacorporations are at war over a planet that's a little more than a speck at the edge of the universe. And with enemy fire raining down on them, Katie and Ezra, who are barely even talking to each other, are forced to evacuate with a hostile warship in hot pursuit. But their problems are just getting started. A plague is broken out, and it's mutating with terrifying results. And the fleet's AI may actually be their enemy. And nobody in charge will say what's really going on. So Katie hacks into a web of data to find the truth, and it's clear the only person who can help her is her ex-boyfriend, whom she broke up with the day they were all evacuating their planet. Awkward. So I read this first as an audiobook, and then I realized I am really missing out on some stuff. So I ended up buying the hard copy after looking it over in the bookstore. Yes, a bookstore. This is a trilogy, but I like the first one the best. Eleanor Oliphant is completely fine by Gail Honeyman. It's a rather deep upmarket fiction story about a socially awkward woman trying to heal old wounds through connections and kindness. The story includes a series of letters that reveal emotional trauma and healing. It's not all epistolary, but those letters carry a lot of weight. It's a well-known example, unlike some of mine, to capitalize on the epistolary feature. Ella Minnow P. by Mark Dunn. It's short, it's funny, and it's oh so clever. The citizens of a fictional island write to each other, so this is all letters, as the government bans one letter of the alphabet after another. It's playful, satirical novel told entirely through letters. The first few letters contain all 26 letters of the English language. The story is set on a remote but charming island where everyone is obsessed with fictional Nevin Nollop, the person they say invited the typewriter test sentence that uses every letter of the alphabet. The quick fox jumps over the lazy dog. There's a statue of fictional Nevin Nollop. I looked it up to see if it was a real person. It's not. But the people in this book are so dedicated. It convinced me he could be a typewriter testing guru. And the iconic phrase inscribed on the statue, but then one day, the letter Z from the word lazy falls off. And so what does the town council decide to do? Should we fix the statute? No. Let's all stop using the letter Z. It's a sign. So then every letter from then on cannot contain the letter Z. And then more letters start falling off. So it gets harder and harder to communicate as this statute clearly falls into a state of disrepair. And communication devolves into a collection of words with a limited set of letters as the story progresses. Devolution by Max Brooks. This is a found papers type of story. If you watched last week's video with writing tips and tropes about epistolary novels, found papers is one of them, and it is presented through journal entries, research reports, and interviews. It follows an isolated tech commune's attempts to survive a series of Bigfoot attacks. Yes, Bigfoot attacks, told through found journal entries. It's like the premise of Blair Witch, only with Sasquatch. The people are living in a really isolated community. Everything's arriving by drone delivery. There's no real transportation in or out for the people once they arrive. At first, there are just some odd sightings. I like it. It's got a mood. It's just like, what's that? Ooh, that's some really big scat. And then the food is disappearing. And then big feet are taking over the whole community. Ah! And then last on the list, The Divorce Papers by Susan Reiger. We're ending as we started with another legal type story. This one with an attorney as the main character, and she's digging through all of the documents in a file for a divorce case and finding way more than she expected or wanted to know. So 29-year-old Sophie Deal is happy toiling away as a criminal law associate at an old line New England firm, where she very much appreciates that most of her clients are behind bars. Everyone at Trainer Hand knows that Sophie abhors face-to-face contact, but with one weekend, with all the big partners away, Sophie must handle the intake interview for the daughter of the firm's most important client. And after 18 years of marriage, Mayflower descendant Mia Durkheim has just been served with divorce papers in a humiliating scene at the most popular local restaurants. She's locked and loaded and ready to fight her eminent and ambitious Dr. Husband for custody of their 10-year-old daughter. And she also wants to take him down a peg. Sophie warns Mia that she has never handled a divorce case before. She usually does criminal law, but Mia can't be put off. And as she puts it, it's her first divorce too. The whole novel is a series of memos, emails, deposition, court filings, and some letters introduced as evidence. There you go. That's my list. It's 12 epistolary novels with some recommendations for you if you're interested in reading more about this form. And if you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and share. I post new content every week where I write about writing, editing, and the writing life. And this is Miranda Darrow wishing you happy writing.